Hey guys, I'm Shanna with The Best Groceries. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made a removable full-size trellis for my rice garden. The reason that I wanted this trellis is because my plan is to grow a continuous rotation of salad ingredients so that I always have lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers for salads year-round without any breaks in between. The way that I'm doing this is to have a steady rotation of all of my salad plants so that they're staggered in age, and as one is finishing producing or being harvested, I've got a brand new one ready to take its place and start producing. The result of that rotation is that I've got 4 cucumber plants in my garden. They are staggered in age, and I have them growing at the back of the bottom level, and they're growing all the way up the back of the garden. So my priorities with the trellis were to have it full height so that the cucumbers have as much vertical space as possible to grow. And also, in order to do this, I needed to space it away from the back of the garden a little bit so that as the plants go up, they have the opportunity to grow behind the tray of the next level and upwards, continuing along the trellis all the way to the top. I built this trellis using rolled wire fencing that I bought at Home Depot. For my 3-tier garden, I had to cut the fencing to 36 inches wide by 47 inches tall. Now, if you have a 2 or single level garden, then you'll need to adjust that 47-inch height to fit your garden. Originally, I attached my trellis to my garden using blocks of wood as spacers and zip ties to hold the fencing in place. Then I had a pest outbreak and wanted to be able to take my trellis off so that I could hose off my plants if needed to rinse the pests away. So I changed my attachment method. Let me show you what this looks like in detail. My new installation method, which allows me to remove the trellis, is to still keep a couple blocks as spacers. I have these blocks hole drilled in them and they're zip tied to the trellis. And then I'm going to have one zip tie on each side that will hold the bulk of the weight of the trellis. On each level of the garden, I've put 2 of these 3M command hooks, and that's going to help to keep the trellis up a little bit. It's going to help with the spacing to make sure it doesn't bow out from the back of the garden, and it's going to help the trellis from moving and shifting around in the garden. I want it to stay where it is and not be moving all the time. So anytime I want to remove this trellis, which would generally be if I get a pest infestation and I want to hose off my plants, I will have one zip tie to cut on each side, and that's it. I'm also going to look into, apparently there are reusable zip ties that you can get. So in that case, I just have to release them and not even cut them. And then this whole thing will just lift off these hooks. So you can see that the trellis is allowing my plants to grow all the way from the bottom where they're at the back, up the trellis, and behind each level of trays, and up to the top level. And then at that point, I cut the top of them so they stop growing upwards and then start making me cucumbers. One thing is that as they're growing, you do have to train them to make sure they go around the back. Otherwise, they'll want to just kind of hit the lights and go forward. So I use these little Velcro ties to attach them to the trellis at several points along the way. And this also helps to hold the plant onto the trellis. If I ever need to take it off to wash things, it just keeps everything more secure. The last thing I need to figure out in order to be able to remove this trellis entirely and carry it around and not damage my plants is when I pull these net cups out of the bottom tray, how am I going to support them so they're not just dangling at the bottom and putting a lot, the big root ball is putting a lot of weight on the plant stem or they're flopping around. What I came up with was to carefully remove the net cups from the trays and then put the net cups into a Ziploc bag and attach it to the trellis. That way it's not dangling from the bottom and will stay secure while I move the trellis. Once that was done, I was able to cut the 2 zip ties, unhook the hooks, and remove the trellis from the garden. In this case, I was taking the trellis down to spray my plants off due to a pest infestation. So I hung the trellis up in my shower and gave the plants a good wash before I brought it back to the garden to reinstall. I reattached the trellis to the garden using the same steps as the original installation. First, I put on the 2 zip ties to support the weight. It was quite challenging for me to hold the trellis up and put the zip ties on by myself. If you have another person that can help you, it will make this step much easier. Then I hooked on my little 3M hooks. And finally, I took the net cups out of the Ziploc bags and put them back into the trays. So that's how I built a full-size trellis for my 3-tier rise garden that allows me to grow tall vining plants like cucumbers and also is removable for cases like cleaning or dealing with pests. If you found this video helpful or interesting, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel.